Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential, chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with Satori Prime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, and welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. And today we're going to be doing part 2 of my interview with Alex Kouts, Power of Negotiations. And we cut part 1 off right when he was about to tell us how to build relationships and interact with the relationships as capital, money that you basically put in the bank. So we're going to start off with that. We're going to look at some cool little ideas on how to actually build quality relationships. And then Alex is going to share a very, very personal story about his mom. And we then circle back a little bit to the negotiation table and talk about what things to say, not to say when you're actually getting offers. And then we obviously ended it with our famous cliche question, which Alex gave a really, really interesting response to, which I'd never heard before. So I hope you enjoyed part 2, and we'll see you on the next Performance Enhancing Podcast.
As far as like things that are very good, like to actually generate relationships, I would say people without hobbies get isolated very easily. So I have a lot of hobbies. I play poker and I skied and trap shoot constantly. So I have like target shooting, stuff like that. I go camping, I go rock climbing, I go mountain climbing, all these different things, hiking. There's a million different ways you can meet people. The best way to do it is through things that you already find interesting and that you're passionate about. So if you're really into like video gaming, like I play Call of Duty constantly. I freaking love it. It's my guilty pleasure. Like find the people that are in Call of Duty and like join clans with them, right? So like do that kind of stuff. But I would say one of the best things to do as well is get involved with nonprofits. Like I was VP of product at a company that was like Kickstarter for charity. So we did helped charities raise money online. And I got involved with a ton of nonprofits through that, ended up on the board of a couple. I cannot tell you how many real meaningful relationships you generate when you're doing something that actually matters and that you are passionate about and other people are immediately passionate about. And not only that, the types of people that get involved in nonprofits tend to have some extra time on their hands. And at the board level especially, they tend to be very well-connected business people. So giving back to a nonprofit, number one, feeds your soul. It's unbelievable. There's no feeling like volunteering and doing something good with your life. And number two, you're meeting people that you have something immediately connecting and authentic with. So if I'm volunteering in a soup kitchen and deciding to give my time to do that, I'm interfacing with people that need my help, which is a profound experience, and I can help them and they can help me and all these kinds of things. But on top of that, I meet people who are doing the same thing, and I'm socially validated by the fact that I'm doing something that makes me seem like a good person. And quite frankly, hopefully you are if you're doing that. Yeah. So there's an immediate connection that's like meaningful. So a lot of people who move to the Bay Area, one of the first things I tell them is volunteer in a nonprofit.
Wow.
Volunteer in a nonprofit, give your time. You want to infiltrate the business community, like meet the startup people, do that. Mountain climbing or rock climbing, especially indoor rock climbing gyms, are another great one if you do tech, because just a lot of engineers love that kind of thing because it's very problem solving and you have to talk to people to do it. You need like a belay or you need, advice from other people or whatever. So I would say hobbies that you're passionate about, nonprofits, unbelievable.
Honestly, Alex, I think that's the first time I've ever heard someone say that term. I think you said people without hobbies get isolated. It's interesting because it seems very intuitive. I've never actually heard someone say it. And as soon as you said it, I went, that is so absolutely true. Yeah. In business, like if you're in the finance world, then things like tennis, skiing, golfing, one of those is pretty much a prerequisite. It really is. And I haven't picked up golf yet. I'm a tennis guy. I just like to be a little more active. But I've noticed that networking events, there's a ton of networking events in those worlds around golf, tennis.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, look at it this way. Like I've had a lot of friends in the Bay Area that I've met, and I went shooting every week, right? I belonged to a gun club in San Francisco, and I would go shooting. And I meet people like, hey, you know what? Like, if I really like them, I'd be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go shooting on Sunday. I go every Sunday. Why don't you come with? You ever shot trap before? Probably not. Immediately, they're like, oh shit, America! I get to shoot some guns. Let's go have fun. I've made great friends that be friends the rest of my life because I involved them in something I was passionate about, something that they may not be doing on a regular basis, which immediately forms like a lasting memory and a shared experience that you can build off of. And hanging out at a bar and having a drink is just not the same thing because that's just so common.
Yeah.
Everybody does that shit. But if it's like, you know what, let's go sailing, let's go hiking, let's go like do something fun, rock climbing, whatever, like play soccer, who gives a shit? It's just so much more real and fun.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to say, just to your point about nonprofit, and this is kind of like a disclaimer for those listening, these things have to be authentic to you. You can't go in there and fake it because you're trying to manipulate meeting people and acquiring these relationships.
Yeah.
There is a bullshit meter that every single human being has. They will see right through you and will hate you and never want to speak to you. So if you're going to do these things, follow things that you're actually passionate about or can get passionate about. Don't do it for the sake of, Alex said, like, this is a good place to meet people. That will come off so sleazy. I just really want to make sure people get that.
It won't work. Absolutely. I'm glad you underscored that. I mean, I've spent a lot of time speaking at conferences in my career. And when you speak at conferences, you get a lot of people that come up afterwards to you. And they will say every kind of thing in the world to try and make it seem like, they want to generate a relationship, right? Like, oh, you mentioned you did this thing. I do that thing too. Like, we should definitely do that thing. And I'm like, okay, I understand given the context of when you're using something, you just want like to develop a relationship for what I was just speaking about. You don't really give a shit about me. Like, you don't really want to do that. Like, everybody knows when you're being disingenuous.
Exactly.
Like, even if they don't the first time they meet you, the second time they meet you, it's going to be obvious. And not only will you not get anything out of it, but you will burn a bridge that is insane because your reputation is everything. And if you get a reputation as some sleazy dude who's like hustling his way into like a nonprofit of all the places in the world to try and, meet people or network, I mean, it's a mess. So do it because you're passionate about it and everything else will follow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to point out that, I met Alex through a friend of mine, Jordan, who we have a great relationship with. He's helped me. I've helped him. I contacted him. He said, hey, Ilan's a great guy. Alex is a great guy. He connected us via email. We spoke for a little bit. And then this is what happens when you set up your life in what Alex is talking about. When you're open and actually interested in what people do, who they are, what they're about, etc. So we had just spoken, Alex. I think it was like a couple of days after. I'm at a networking event, and this guy who runs an app is telling me about a story that he's looking to capital raise and all this stuff. And Alex just pops up in my head, and I go, you know what? I actually just met a guy that does this. Like, he consults people on how to do this. And then now I have someone great to connect with Alex.
Yeah.
And it was very organic. It wasn't forced. I wasn't thinking, walking around going like, who do I connect Alex to? Who do I connect? It was just, it happened, and these things happen all the time. You end up meeting the perfect person that if you keep your eyes and ears open, it just like magic.
Oh yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Layer Cake.
Oh yeah.
Oh, one of my favorite movies, but there's a line that said there was the art of good business is being a good middleman. And that's the truth, right? Like, the more people you acquire in like your professional Rolodex, the more value you can create. And, I'm at a point now where like, it's very easy for me to connect people. So when I do consulting for companies, a lot of what I'm doing is like connection. It's connection to this person or that person. And when you like build those relationships, it is money in the bank. And as someone who's making money off it, I will tell you, like, it is money in the bank. But you have to do something of value in order to generate them, right? And, another thing just as a point on that as well is it's not just about volunteering. It's not just about spending your time doing stuff, but it's also putting something out there. So everybody has like a story to tell. Everyone's telling a story. As a teacher, I'm telling you a story, right? As like a business, the business is telling the consumer a story that the consumer is going to buy the entire world is a compendium of stories going every which way. You need to figure out a way to tell your own story. The reason I got into teaching, that got me into a lot of other types of things, is because I freely shared my story without any expectation of professional return. And I taught for free. I wasn't paid by that company to do that. I was like, you know what, fine. Like, I'm happy to help out. That sounds cool. Let me help out. Everybody has something to share. Everybody has something they can give. And if you give it freely and you get it out there and you're good at it and you refine it over time, it will pay dividends to you. No one I've ever met has started a company or been successful without putting something out in the world first. I know people in the Bay Area who've gotten jobs with zero experience because they have a really, really well articulated blog where they write about it, they want a job in, because they took the time to create the content and put it out there. And the truth is, like, no one knows what they're doing when they start. They're not. Even if you know absolutely nothing about artisanal soap creation, learn about it. Write a blog post about it. Get your knowledge out there. Start developing it. Have conversations about it. And I guarantee quickly you'll know more than 99% of the people in the world. Just because you keep working. And some subjects are harder than others. Maybe artisanal soap is like a really low bar.
Super niche-y.
Yeah. Maybe like negotiation or like, startup development's a little higher, but it's still not out of your reach. Anybody can do this stuff. And I gotta be honest. I mean, like, I know, no offense. Maybe there's some guests on the show that have done this, but I've been on this like interview podcast circuit lately, and there's like an entire industry of people who have no idea what they're doing, but they sell lots and lots of money to people buying their products, like buying their stuff, and quite frankly, their content is like terrible. But because like they keep working and they keep like networking and get their name out there, they're able to create a basic online business that makes these guys well in excess of 6 figures a year. Some of them make 6 figures a month. And they're not experts. They're no smarter than you. They're just like working their butt off and networking and building relationships. So, I mean, there's a dark side to it as well. But I mean, it shows how powerful this stuff can be. Like really knowing how to put stuff out there and become like an authority, even if you're not a genius in it.
100%.
So, yeah. So, I mean, just if you take it back to like the basic thing that we can all use, just throw stuff out there. Be generous with your time and don't worry about when you're going to get paid back, because if you do it out of the goodness of your heart and you become good at it, things come.
Yeah. And I will say, just to your point about some of those, kind of like the dark side, most of those, and I've been doing this for a while, never last, right? They're like this flicker. It's an explosive light, and then you never hear their name again. And the other point that I want to make is consistency. It's really easy to say, I'm going to go for this. The people that make New Year's resolutions about getting fit and go to the gym for a month, 2, and then wonder why in December they're still fat. Like, you're better off going once a week, let's say, but consistently over 12 months, you'll get better results than going, 3 times for a month, 3 times in a week for a month. It just doing something consistently, like what you're talking about. Say you did artisanal soaps, okay? Well, your first blog post can be the most basic, generic nonsense about artisanal soap. But after a while, you're like, well, I got to dig deeper. And that's where I think you start highlighting the nuances, the intricacies. And that's where your voice and your story and your perspective, which is really what people connect to, that just takes time to develop. It's not something that comes out naturally. Alex didn't start teaching. And, what you're teaching today is eons from where you started. And that practice of becoming a master over time and never really feeling like a master, but always feeling like a student. If you could just fall in love with that pursuit, there is nothing in this world that you cannot dominate. You can literally be like an artisanal soap writer, and you would be the best one in the next 5-7 years if you gave yourself that much time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, the funny thing, I heard an analogy years ago that when you get started at anything, your taste is up here, but your skill level is down here. And the distance between is like nothing but sheer frustration. So in that first artisanal soap blog post that you post, you're going to have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But the good thing is no one's actually going to be reading it, so it doesn't matter. So when you get started, like the barrier to entry and like the pain is like very, very low. There's low risk, right, when you're getting started. But when you start, your taste is up here, your skill level's down here, and in between is massive amounts of frustration. And then later, as you get better and better, these begin to come back in line. So eventually what happens is like your skill level and your taste level begin to align. To the point where then your taste level jumps up another level. And it keeps going up and up and up and up. And that's that's the world that we live in. And there's always this like frustration curve, right? Like, and it keeps stepping up, like punctuated equilibria, as they call them, like economics. It just happens, right? So be comfortable being frustrated, be comfortable feeling like you're not good at it. And like, you maybe feel like a little bit of a fraud. And why the hell is anybody listening to me? Because everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I toured SpaceX not too long ago here in Hawthorne, California, which is like an unbelievable experience to like see people building rockets, which is Elon Musk's new company, right? Or not new, I guess. But I mean, it's amazing. When they got started, he was trying to buy intercontinental ballistic missiles from the Russian military because he couldn't figure out how to build one on his own, right? When he started, it was like deep, dark, like drinking vodka in a room with the KGB trying to figure out how to build this rocket, right? So when he got started, he was, in like rocket terms, like laughable. And now eventually he's got this unbelievably sprawling complex with thousands and thousands of people that he's employed to make this dream of privatizing spaceflight. I mean, there's a very thin line between drinking poison in the jungle and salvation, and it's impossible to know what it is until you get there, right? But I mean, this guy started buying nukes, right? Buying like de-arm, like, it doesn't matter. Whatever your thing is, like, start messy and get clean.
Yeah. And I like this analogy with the layers and the frustration. And the only thing I can add to that is that the gaps become, like, the things to overcome the gaps become much bigger. Like the problems and the frustrations become more expensive and bigger. That's the only way I can explain it. The thing is, though, your ability to deal with them and get through them gets so much better. Like if God forbid one of those things at level, let's say 3 happened when you were starting out, you would literally go in a hole and cry for a year. But when you get there, it's like you've built up the tools and the abilities to do it and go through it. And it almost doesn't seem that big anymore. And you're connected, right? So you have people that you can reach out to and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. Like you're just building up all this equity at the beginning just to get that ball rolling it seems so hard, but it's funny that the challenges become so much harder. You just don't even witness them as difficult anymore.
No, but not only that, and I'll be the first to tell you, like most of what I learned about negotiating, I learned from my mother. So we're going to get real deep for a second. I'm going to take my glasses off. So my mom has had a very, very difficult life, very challenging in a lot of ways, right? Came from a rough situation, grew up through the worst kind of adversity you can imagine, death, all kinds of horrible things. But what's funny is she would tell my brother and I growing up that because she went through these things, nothing could kill her. She's going to live through this because she's lived through worse. And there's something amazing and something I love about people that have experienced like very tough personal adversity in their life or adversity in their lives, like very, very difficult situations that have survived it, because then you can. It's different than someone who grew up sheltered in the suburbs and has never dealt with any adversity in their life. People who dealt with pain, all kinds of things, know that they will survive. You need to know that you will survive no matter what. And hopefully it doesn't take a horrible situation to get you to realize that. But like momentary embarrassment is nothing. And that's typically the thing most people are most terrified of when trying to do something at the beginning. That's absolutely nothing. You won't even remember it in a month. Yep. It's a joke. All the things in my life that I've been so terrified of, like stress-wise, a couple years later, I don't even remember them. So pain like that is fleeting, and you will survive, and you can survive, and there's nothing you should worry about. So
beautifully said. Beautifully said. I've actually been doing a lot of thanks for sharing that story, by the way. I've been doing a lot of personal development work for a long time, but more recently, less cerebral, more heart and body, if that hopefully makes sense. And what I've started realizing is that everything in life is very temporary, both the good and the bad. And it's funny, as a human, when something's bad, you just do these things like you resist it, you want it away. And when something is good, what are we doing? We're pulling for that thing to stay. Like, please stay, don't go away, right? And the funny part is, it's the same coin. It's two sides of the same coin. You're either fighting to keep something here or fighting to push something away, instead of just being in the now and realizing that the good is temporary, the bad is temporary. And in the grand scheme of things, like you said, it's a blink of an eye. It's a blink of an eye. And if you just keep doing the right things and you just keep pursuing some sort of level of mastery or something, then it all, in the grand scheme of things, just becomes the journey. And then you can enjoy the journey, the good, the bad, the struggles, the victories, and not hang on to any of it or resist any of it. And it's been a very interesting shift, I would say, in mindset to get to that point. Not easy, but definitely something I'm working on personally. I want to ask you the final question, but before that, I just want to go. We kind of went like on this crazy tangent and left negotiation for a second, but you said this amazing line on the interview with Jordan about what to say, like the actual phrase you say when someone gives you an offer. And I thought it was very powerful and very simple. Can we at least share that? We kind of went back here.
Let's talk about this, but through the story of my mom. No, I'm just kidding.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I use in sour negotiations. And number one of the first things is like in a lot of negotiations, the tough part for people is they feel very reactive, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm reacting to what this company is offering me. I have to come back at it, and they're calling the shots. They're running momentum. So the first thing that I do whenever I receive a job offer or anybody that I work with, like first thing I tell them to do is change the tempo of the conversation. And there's one very simple line that I use to do that, which is, okay, like let's say the job offer comes in, Alex, we're going to offer you X number of dollars with X number of stock options, X start date, benefits, is all blah, 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 blah. So my first response is always the same and always very simple. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the consideration of the offer. I know I can kill it for your company. I'm very excited about the opportunity. As I'm considering this against other options, it'd be very helpful to know, is there any flexibility in the base? So in that situation, what I've done is I'm basically saying, number one, I'm setting the tone, right? I'm saying, I am very excited. I'm reiterating my passion. It's a meaningless courtesy, but it's got to be there. Second, I'm displaying social proof and market validation because I'm saying I need to evaluate this based on other things that I'm looking at, and I'll get back to you shortly. I'm social proofing it. So I'm saying the market is saying I'm valuable and that they're interested in me as well. And then I say, as I'm doing that, it'd be very helpful to know if there's any flexibility in the terms. I typically pick the base salary to negotiate because you can't negotiate a lot of different things with the salary. You begin to strain the other side of the deal. Or the other side of the table. So I pick one thing typically. But by just saying, is there any flexibility in the terms, I'm putting them on the defensive. Yeah. So now they have to answer that in their response email, right? And the response is, well, we think this is a pretty fair offer. What are you thinking? So now they're reacting to me 99% of the time. Because they don't want to say, no, there's no flexibility. Most jobs, there is some flexibility. If they come off and they say no, they're going to look like, well, maybe I don't want to sound like an asshole. We don't want to sound immovable because we could lose this person right now. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to sound that way. And again, back to the beginning of the conversation, this is where I know that the other side of the table is terrified of losing me. The HR representative, by the time they offer me a job in most companies, the entire team has already signed off on me. Maybe I've been through 3 to 4 interviews, maybe more, maybe less. But that means the team has validated that they want me. They've said to this person, bring them in the door, close the offer. That's their mandate. So this HR rep is terrified to go back to the team and say, I lost them because we couldn't make it work. Well, how did I make it work? Well, my response to an email was bad and I lost them. Absolutely not. They don't want to say that.
Over what, like 7-10 grand at the end of the day?
It's not a big deal. And quite frankly, the amount of time it takes to invest in hiring someone, not only opportunity cost of the team interviewing people or candidates, but more time in the position not filled, work not getting done, the cost racks up and up and up and up. Businesses have to hire. That's how they grow and how they move forward. So you're already in a good position. So again, I'm turning the other side on the defensive by saying, is there any flexibility in the base or the terms? They immediately have to answer. So very, very, very small sentence and extremely important.
Yeah, really powerful. And I love, just not to skip over it, the social proof part that I'm looking at other what did you say?
While I'm considering other, so the way I typically phrase it is, I need to evaluate this based on other opportunities that I'm looking at. I will get back to you shortly. So it's, I'm looking at other opportunities, not that I've gotten offers from other companies, not that, I have 15 people beating down my door. It's as I'm looking at other opportunities. They're going to immediately probably take that as though there's other companies that are looking to make you offers, but you're not saying anything that isn't true.
Yeah.
Right? They're likely to interpret it as more than it is. Potentially, who knows? But the point here is, again, it's social proofing, it's market validation, right? Yeah. It's not you're the person I'm looking to, and I need this more than anything. It's based on other opportunities. And you should always be looking at other opportunities. You should always be applying to jobs. You have a fiduciary responsibility to yourself, to use a legal term, to maximize your commercial value in the job market all the time. You should always be looking for something better than what you have, always.
Yeah.
Loyal to a company, you should be up to a point, but companies are only loyal to you up to the point where they're getting a certain amount of value out of you. The second that value proposition changes for a company, your job is in jeopardy immediately.
Yeah.
So always have your first line responsibilities to yourself.
Yeah, the world shifted. I mean, probably when our grandparents were growing up, and I think it kind of started shifting with our parents, but there was this notion of get a good job at a good company, work there for 30, 35 years, get your retirement, get that gold watch, et cetera, and be done. But that world just doesn't exist. The technology is moving so fast. Education's moving so fast. Companies are struggling, right? They're trying to make more and more money to meet shareholders. So I couldn't agree more how much it is your duty to do that. And just a quick little story. My friend's dad was recently fired, and he was a VP. I don't remember the exact company, but he was in a sales role, and just was comfortable. He had a good salary, not amazing, but a good salary, like the people he was working with, et cetera, and never looked. And then all of a sudden, within 6 months, lost his job. Why? Because they found someone that could do his job for half of what they were paying him.
Yep.
Right? So all this loyalty and thing that he had in his head, gone out the window. But the funny part, and obviously, this is the way kind of the world works, he went back out into the market. And for a man with his type of expertise and his type of position, he got offers of between 50 to 75% more than he was making to do pretty much the same exact job. And he was floored because he didn't go out and actually inquire, which is astounding to me. So now it's like the worst thing that happened is obviously the best thing that happened, which is usually the way it happens. But yes, absolutely, guys. Always, always, always be looking.
Oh yeah, always be taking meetings, always be setting them up. And one thing I coach people to do as well is, if I'm on LinkedIn, let's say I'm like director of product at a company or director of sales or, marketing or whatever, reach out to every single one of your competitors, set up coffee. I would reach out to the people that have the same exact position I had at another company that we compete with. And I'd say, hey, it's always great to meet cool people that are doing interesting things in the space. I know we do similar things. I'd love to get together and have coffee and just meet. I'd love to know you. That's a very important thing because at the end of the day, I ended up getting offers from companies to leave the job I was at because they knew me, they'd seen me, right? And because I used the fact that I had a position there to get a meeting because I'm getting some type of market validation that I'm in a role similar to yours, so I must be somewhat similar to you. We have something in common. It makes it really easy to get a meeting. Use that opportunity to network constantly. I mean, always be looking. Again, you should be loyal to a company up to a point. Not the company, but specifically the team of people you're working with. You should be loyal to the team always. But there again, there's that value equation for a company, right? I met this woman years ago in New York who's a lawyer, and she told me that the value equation for a company is that they need to get 6 times the value of the salary they're paying you out of you in order to justify your existence. So if you're making $100,000 a year, they need to be making $600,000 a year worth of value off of you. Who knows how true that is, but that specific value, that equation, it probably exists in some companies, either explicitly or implicitly. So again, I mean, it's all capitalism and commercialism. It's a physical relationship, a relationship between you and a company that is purely value driven. And the second in which the economics don't make sense, one party or the other, that's where the relationship ends.
Yeah, that again just goes to prove Alex's, future thinking. And the other piece is when you have a job, you're the least needy person in the world. So setting up these meetings then is easy, right? It's just getting to know the other person. What are they doing? Heck, you might learn a way to do your job better if they're actually, in a similar position. And it takes all the pressure off. And I think that's really, really clever. Alex, I feel like I can rap with you for hours about God knows what. And I'm sure we'd find out other stories about your siblings and your mom. But let me ask you the final question that we ask here on the podcast, and we'll end at least this session for now. Maybe we'll have you back if you'd be willing to come back on. Question is the cliche of I wish I knew then what I know now. and you've done a lot and learned a lot. But is there something that you wish you would have known 10, 15 years ago when you were starting business?
I mean, I think that's a great question. I would say that I've generally had a thesis. I lost respect for adults at a very young age just by virtue of their age, which is a good thing, right?
Great thing.
I think everyone assumes that other people know what they're doing, right? Like you look at a company like Coca-Cola, right? Or like some large company, you're like, wow, they really know what they're doing, right? Like the truth is they have no fucking clue what they're doing. Like if they're lucky, they're figuring out as they go along, but most likely they're not figuring anything out at all. They're just doing things repeatedly, and they use bureaucracy to kind of like simonize or like polish off some of their risk or mistakes. So the truth is, like at the end of the day, no one knows what they're doing. They really don't. I mean, I'm very good at product management. I'm very good at the startup stuff by relative measure. And the truth is, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making it up as I go along. I've just gotten a lot better at making it up as I go along. So I think so many people are so terrified by life in general that if you look them in the eye and ask them what they want, they can't even tell you. Don't be that. Know what you want. And even if it's not like 50 years down the road, you know what you want, like know what you want like tomorrow or immediately. I want a cheeseburger right now, like whatever it ends up being. Be very comfortable saying that you want something and then figuring out how to do it and not being uncomfortable when you screw up. And, I've learned that over time. But, had I known that when I was younger, I think I would have been creating more content, getting more out there, speaking publicly more, doing all kinds of stuff and sharpening my skills earlier. So I would say it's never too late to start. I mean, I know people who started companies in their 50s, 60s, 70s and done extremely well for themselves. I mean, never too late, never too early. And don't be scared because you think other people know more than you, because quite frankly, they don't. And if they do, you should meet them and know them and learn from them. And, cold email them on LinkedIn. Who knows?
Brilliant.
But, yeah, man, that's never stop. Never stop realizing that you're embarrassed and everybody else in the world is embarrassed too. So
who said it? I think it was Teal who said, if your first iteration you're not embarrassed by, you waited too long to release it.
Yeah. Very true.
Very true. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. This is kind of, I figured we were going to go and cover a whole slew of things. So that was really, really fun. And I really hope that everyone that was listening got some incredible insights on how to take the edge off and the fear of going out and doing these things. And we didn't talk about it here, but I've heard Alex say it, like you can go practice this anywhere. You can practice when you're buying a car, buying a burger at McDonald's. It doesn't matter, just do it for the sake of getting comfortable of asking. And when you do it with the smaller things, it's going to make the ones that are actually meaningful and important to you much, much easier. So hopefully you guys can go out and do that. And
also there's a ton of content online, right? I mean, like the internet is a wealth of knowledge on everything. There are videos to teach you how to do this kind of stuff, to help you learn from other people who do it all the time. I mean, endless resources. So
yeah, Alex, for those people that actually want to either take your class or learn about you or figure out how to connect with you, where can they go and do that?
So you can find me on Twitter at @Kouts. So just my first letter, my first name and last name, AKOUTS. It's funny. I actually, in a previous podcast, someone came up to me and said, your content is so good and like your interviews are so good because you're not making any money off this. You're just like giving advice for advice sake. Just you're not making any money. Everyone else is making so much money. You're just not making any money. That's why your like stuff is so good. And I was like, well, interesting. So I do teach negotiations pretty regularly. If you live in San Francisco, DC, or New York, I teach in those three cities quite frequently at a school called General Assembly. So if you search my name online, you'll find it. But I'm putting a lot of my negotiating content online at a site called negotiationplaybook.com. So I'll be basically video recording my classes and kind of breaking them up into lessons, and that'll be launching pretty soon. So if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome to. And there'll be a contact function on that website. So if you have any questions, I'm always happy to be free with my time and help other people figure problems out. So hopefully that can be helpful.
Awesome. Alex, thank you so much. And for everyone else that's listening, have an amazing, amazing day.